Welcome to another week, another show of Hawkeye with me, Dave O'Hara. Momentarily, you see our good buddy Owen Siebring on the line with me on screen. And Owen is the sports anchor at Fox 28 and CBS 2 in Eastern Iowa, Iowa's News Now in the Cedar Rapids, Iowa City area. Owen, of course, is part of that fantastic podcast, Eye on the Hawks podcast. Be sure to check that out on Iowa's News Now YouTube page as well. So great coverage through and through. Owen, my friend, as always, it is great to see you. I appreciate you joining us for the first two segments, talking Hawkeye men's basketball and then Hawkeye women's basketball. And then we'll close out the show talking with Mike Palm in our sports betting segment. He is VP of Operations for Circus Sports in Vegas. Mike, of course, is an Eastern Iowa native from Dubuque. Owen, my friend, as always, it's great to see you. Thanks for joining us. How's everything going with you?
Yeah, good. Happy to be here, Dave.
Let's get to it right away. Hawkeye men's basketball out west right now as we record this on Tuesday afternoon, February 3rd. Owen, the Hawks are in UW in Washington and Seattle area playing the University of Washington Huskies. It'll be tomorrow night, Wednesday night, February 4th. Hawks right now 16-5, Owen 6-4 in the Big Ten. The cool news is they're receiving votes again in the coaches and AP poll. You have them, since you're an AP voter, you have them at 25 in your AP poll. I'm going to step aside. You're the expert here. Let's hear you talking some Hawkeye men's basketball for us, please, my friend.
Yeah, we just wrapped up our latest episode of Eye on the Hawks, actually. So myself and Mike Howell were just talking about my recent votes for getting the Hawkeyes back in the top 25. He actually asked me a week ago, what would it take for them to get in? And I said, if they win both their games this week, then I think I could see putting them in. There's always a lot of extenuating circumstances because I had Kentucky and Louisville in my last poll. They both lost, so they both dropped out of my top 25. So I'm like, all right, I've got two open spots for a team to get in there, and Iowa and Texas A&M were the teams that I ended up putting into my top 25. So it's, for me, it's not necessarily, even though their two wins last week were not against the most high quality opponents. I mean, USC's an all right team. Oregon has not been what we thought they would be this year, but it's still a Big Ten win on the road. So it's not so much about those wins, but the fact that they do still now have a 4-game winning streak and are starting to look like a team that has started to put things together. I think right now they're like ranked 19th in the net and the Ken Palm. So, boy, the schedule makers really love Iowa and what they've put together this season. And so just based on that, based on them kind of looking like the team that we thought they'd be with, Alvaro Falgueras coming into form and looking like the guy that we thought he might be coming into this Iowa roster. Brendan Haas is starting to play well based on that Oregon result. And so this seems like a team that now is back among consideration for being, not just a top 25 team, but now really starting to look at what seeding might be for the Big Ten tournament and for bracketology come March.
But it starts and stops with Bennett Sturts, of course. And Bennett, of course, the Big Ten co-player of the week this week. 32 points, the career high. And I love his comments afterwards going, oh, really? I had that many? And then Dolphin Bobby Hansen said, yeah, for your career, 2 years at Division II, 1 year at Drake last year in the mid-level, as they call it, or mid-D1. Now you're in Power 4 in his senior year. And they said, you just hit 2,000 career points. And in his usual humble way, he goes, oh, I didn't know that. And so that's cool, and then he said, yeah, I was stuck on 30 as my career high, so it was nice to break my career high and get 32. But I think, Owen, for a ball-dominant guard like Bennett Sturts, think about this, and I stammer over these words. He's ball-dominant, 7 assists and 0 turnovers in 38 minutes, along with those 32 points. So, yeah, those other stats are pretty cool. 7 assists, 0 turnovers, and he handles the ball multiple times almost every possession, Owen.
Yeah, this is the guy that you wanted on your roster and who Ben McCollum told us he would be coming in. I think a lot of people, even myself included, kind of wondered, gosh, can this kid who played 2 years at Division II and was at a mid-major, can he make the jump to Big Ten? And I mean, there were maybe been some games where you think, he went scoreless in that first half against Minnesota. And so there have been moments where you think, oh, maybe can Bennett handle the pressure of the Big Ten? But yeah, he's turning into the guy that we sure thought he would be. And I believe now is on the Bob Cousy mid-season top 10 award. So it's like basically saying this guy's one of the 10 best point guards in the country, which, he's probably not going to win the award, frankly. Braden Smith probably has a pretty good lock on that thing if it's not Taman Lipsey over at Iowa State. But for getting a top 10 point guard in the portal, that is just everything that the Hawkeyes could have wanted out of him.
And what a package deal. McCollum comes over from Drake along with Bennett Sturts. Think about this, and I heard Ben McCollum say this on his radio show or his YouTube show and his coach's show last night. I thought he was at least first team his second year. He was second team all conference in Division II both years, freshman and sophomore year. Now, he was the freshman of the year, and then second year, sophomore year, he's second team all conference again. And then he goes to Drake, mid-major level, as you said, and in the Missouri Valley, MVC, and he is the player of the year, so All-American, or at least mentions. And now this year, as you mentioned, every bit. And that's what McCollum pointed out. He said, guys, he was talking to Bobby Hansen and Gary Dolphin. He said, guys, it's not that he just levels up. He goes beyond each level, he levels up beyond. And so now, to your point, he's in all the top 10 lists. And yeah, you're right. Brandon Smith, probably from Purdue, will get any point guard awards. But he is on a lot of lists, and a great list, and still being talked about, Owen, as a mid to late first-round draft pick in the NBA with only 2 rounds. So regardless, we got a lot of Hawkeye basketball playing ahead of him before we get to those points. But what a player. And then you add in, Cooper Koch is still coming around. And when he can get into double figures and then he gets, half a dozen rebounds here and there, he's a nice fill in. And then you've got guys coming in off the bench between Howard and either Isaiah Howard or Cale Combs, whoever starts and doesn't start and rotates in and out. It is a nice lineup, and he's got his 8, 9 guys. And you and I talked about this earlier this year and even in November, Owen, where Ben McCollum would get to his 8 to 9 guys. He sure has seemed to found those guys, hasn't he?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and we had a lot of surprises coming our way at the start of the season. I don't know if anybody in the media could have predicted who that starting 5 on opening night was going to be. I don't know if a lot of people had Cooper Koch as one of the starters, but Ben McCollum sure is seeing this team different than what we anticipated, and things are bearing themselves out fruitfully right now. And hopefully, I think we're starting to see even the bench players come into form, because Alvaro Folgueras, he certainly has had his struggles this year, but last 2 games, boy, he's looked great. I really don't know if Iowa wins the USC game if it's not for Alvaro getting some quality points late in that game when USC was making its push. And Brendan Hausen now with the Oregon game. We really thought we'd see a lot of him this year. I just saw this. Brendan Hausen played 15 minutes, I believe, against Oregon. That's more than every other Iowa game he'd played in the calendar year 2026 combined. So we finally see something out of Brendan Hausen, and hopefully that's what we see going forward, because this team does have some tough games down the stretch against teams like Nebraska and Michigan, and they're going to be at home against Purdue before too long. So they're tough games, but seems like now they're finding their groove, finding their footing for what this team is actually capable of. These next 3 games, I think, are really going to be crucial ones for solidifying where this team belongs once the NCAA tournament selection comes around, because they've got Washington, which would be a quad 1 win for them. So that is a huge one that they really need to get. Northwestern at home, very winnable game. Maryland on the road. Maryland is frankly terrible this year, and so that's a game you hope you win. So right now, you've got 4 straight wins. You really could use these next 3 as well once you really start to get in the meat grinder of the Big Ten, with the Michigans and the Nebraskas and the Purdues still remaining on your schedule.
Yeah, then it turns into the Big Ten. And being an AP voter, top 25, top 10 specifically, just littered with Big Ten teams. I think the second most conference with 5. So, as you mentioned, with the Illinois, Purdue's, Michigans of the world, Nebraska, there's just 4 off the top of my head. But the schedule gets beefy, that's for sure, as we move along. Owen, great stuff from you as always. We look forward to talking to you in our next segment, talking Hawkeye women's basketball. Folks, there he is, Owen Siebring. He is the sports anchor at Fox 28, CBS 2, Iowa's News Now, and part of that fantastic Eye on the Hawks podcast. Owen, of course, joins the show regularly, so we always look forward to talking to Owen. Owen, my friend, we'll be back with more on Hawkeye. I'm Dave O'Hara in just a few moments.
Hawkeye is brought to you by BettorEdge, your ultimate social betting marketplace. With no VIG, you're bound to win more on every bet on BettorEdge. Founded by Hawkeye alum James Siles and proud Iowan Greg Kajewski, BettorEdge delivers an unmatched betting experience. Plus, what's not to love when they're committed to supporting charities and children's hospitals near you? Join the action now. Sign up at bettoredge.com/Hawkeye and get $10 to start winning more today. BettorEdge, where your social betting means your bets go further and you win more.
Welcome back to Hawkeye with me, Dave O'Hara. Owen Siebring, kind enough to join us for the first 2 segments in today's show. Owen, of course, joined us in the first segment talking Hawkeye men's basketball. Now we're going to talk Hawkeye women's basketball as we record this on Tuesday afternoon, February 3rd. Owen, before we start talking Hawkeye women's basketball, and thanks again for holding over, what a cool thing to see Mark Gronowski, not a Hawkeye anymore technically, but was MVP of the East-West Shrine Bowl game, and shows some scouts he can throw the ball. And he ran the ball effectively, but his leadership skills, even after his Iowa playing days and now in the East-West Shrine game, What a leader. I think he's going to make a roster somewhere. And you mentioned this earlier, too. I heard you say or post online that he may make a pro roster. And I'm not saying he's going to be like Tebow and be a tight end or something, but I think this guy has some more football ahead of him. I'm really happy for him.
Yeah, boy, us Hawkeyes or us Iowans, we love it when we can claim somebody as our own. So, hey, just 1 year in Iowa, you're wearing the Tiger Hawk on the side of your helmet in the Shrine Bowl. Hey, he's still a Hawkeye for a lot of Hawkeye fans, I think. But yeah, I think that Shrine Bowl really did show a lot of people what he's capable of because he had some injury. He had the surgery he was coming off of last year. He had, a little bit of gotten dinged up in the offseason. And so it seems like he just wasn't ever quite playing at 100% this year. And then late in the season, once you had the games like he had against Nebraska and Vanderbilt in the ReliaQuest Bowl, that was kind of the Mark Gronowski who maybe NFL teams are starting to look at.
But let's talk Hawkeye women's basketball. 18-4 overall, 9-2 in the Big Ten. And those two, after that long win streak the Hawkeye women had, I guess an aimless wandering trip out west to USC and UCLA. But I talked about this last week with former Hawkeye sharpshooting great Kent McCausland, and I said, even though Juju Watkins is out for the year at USC with her injury, you knew Coach Gottlieb and the Trojans would have something for the Hawkeye women, and they did. And then UCLA, we figured was going to be a buzzsaw at Poly Pavilion, and it was. But all is not lost, folks. So they're still at or near the top of the Big Ten race regular season. Now they got to do some work to get ahead of Michigan and Ohio State again. But there are other big games upcoming. And, of course, we saw where the Hawkeye women, Owen, only dropped 2 spots in this week's AP poll. So they're still in the top 10, went from 8 to 10 after those 2 losses. Now a chance to get right and go home and play Minnesota and UW at Carver Hawkeye Arena in the next week. Again, we record this on Tuesday afternoon, February 3rd. So next Wednesday is UW at Carver Hawkeye Arena, but upcoming this week is Minnesota, the Gophers at home. So a chance to get right at home. And obviously with Taylor Stremlow coming in off the bench and playing well along with Addie Deal. So you got a sophomore in Stremlow, Deal a freshman. But with the senior sharpshooting, what a talent she was, and Taylor McCabe, her going out now, and they had to go out west, and Taylor was at least able to make the trip until her knee settles down before they can do surgery, but her ACL, but still trying to, collect themselves from that. And I know everybody plays with injuries and sickness, and everybody has maladies throughout the year, but this Hawkeye team needs to rally the troops now, get these wins again, back to these winning the games you're supposed to. When you got great leadership in the post, as you and I have talked about, with the senior Hannah Stolke, and then Ava Hayden, that power duo at 4 and 5 positions. And then you can bring in 6'5" Layla Hayes off the bench, the freshman. Then Fearback and her leadership. Then, of course, Chit Chat Wright, and then either Addie Deal, Stremlow. And I'll tell you, Journey Houston has really played nice in spots when she's gotten her opportunities. I know you've covered her as well and talked about that. I've kind of teed everything up and laid it out there for you. So talk for a little bit about it, if you would, please, Owen, the Hawkeye women.
Yeah, and on our show today on Eye on the Hawks, we talked about, is this West Coast road trip any reason for concern for the Hawkeyes? I mean, you loved getting those 3 straight top 25 wins that you had before that. Boy, that USC win would have been real nice because that is a team that's down from what they were last year without Juju, of course. So would have liked to have gotten at least 1 win out of that West Coast road trip. But I think it is a confluence of things. It is a tough road trip out west. It's hard for any team in the Midwest to do well out there. And just adjusting to life without Taylor McCabe, both on the court and off the court. I think that Jan talked about her after the USC game, that she's somebody who really does just calm people's nerves, is able to rally the troops. But even though she's there, when she's not in the huddle in terms of a player and able to go out there with the team, it's just a little bit different. So that is something to get used to. And hopefully these final, I think as we speak right now, I think we only have 7 games left in the regular season for the Hawkeye women's team. And so it is a chance to at least collect themselves and figure things out before the postseason starts, because right now the schedule really looks great if you're the Hawkeyes, because I think you only have 2 ranked opponents remaining on your schedule. Washington, I believe, is 24th right now, and Michigan, I think, is 8th in the country. The schedule works out in a way right now where you at least like where you're at if you're the Hawkeyes, because it's pretty much all winnable games. Honestly, they might be favorites in every single game going forward. The Michigan game could be a little bit of a toss-up because that could be a top 10 matchup. But outside of that, it seems like every game is a winnable one for the Hawkeyes from here on out. So it is a good chance to kind of figure things out without Taylor McCabe in the lineup. Okay, Is Addie Deal the one to fill in there? Is Taylor Strimla played so great off the bench. It's like, okay, is she the one that we want to have in there in the starting lineup instead of McCabe? So it's a good chance to start to figure things out and see what you want going to the postseason, because there is still a lot on the table for this team. This team can still get a double bye for the Big Ten tournament and could still host a couple games for the NCAA tournament, but you got to handle your business. You can't afford more than maybe 2 or 3 more losses.
Owen, we'll talk to you in the next few weeks. Thanks so much, and good to see you again. Thank you, Owen.
Yep, thanks, Dave.
My pleasure. For Owen Siebring, I'm Dave O'Hara. We'll be back to close out Hawkeye in our sports betting segment with Mike Palm, VP of Operations at Circa Sports, a Dubuque, Iowa native, now in Vegas. For Hawkeye, we'll be back in just a few moments.
More and more farmers are taking a look at Merschman Seed's Power Core Enlist corn. Here's Ben Pieper, our product manager.
Power Core Enlist corn hybrids are the fastest growing traits in growers' fields right now. Farmers know that we are choosing the right hybrids for the right acres to put more corn in their hopper at harvest. Combine that with Merschman Seed's starting line seed treatment, growers are finding that high-yielding consistency that they're looking for.
Contact your local Merschman Seed dealer today and ask them about Power Core Enlist corn from Merschman Seeds, your friend in the field.
Welcome back to Hawkeye with me, Dave O'Hara. Got a smile on my face because I'm always happy to hear from and see this guy, Mike Palm, VP of Operations. Handles all things at Circa Sportsbook in Vegas, a Northeast Iowa native from Dubuque. Mike, good to see you again. First time this year of 2026, so belated Happy New Year to you. Good to see you. Thanks for joining us. How's everything going with you?
Dave, it's been too long. Things are great. Super Bowl week, it's the busiest time of the year, almost this in March Madness. So it's exciting. We'll have all the parties going, and, we're looking forward to seeing old friends again this weekend.
Amen, my friend. So today, we're recording this on Tuesday afternoon, February 3rd. I'll let you state the line. We talked about this off the air. Let's bring it on the air. Where do you have it right now? Of course, the rooting interest in Iowa for the Seahawks, because Mason Richmond, a rookie for the Seahawks this year as an offensive lineman, doesn't play much, but hey, he's on the roster. So I think a lot of rooting interest in Iowa here is with the Seahawks. Where do you have the line right now, the over-under and the line, please, Mike?
We opened it 10 days ago on Championship Sunday at 4 and 46.5. It got bet right away by Seattle, 4.5, 5. We even touched 5.5 on Monday, and then bet back down by Tuesday. It came back to 4.5, and we haven't moved an inch since. We did take $1 million bet on the Patriots money line, but that's a hedge. And this is a great story, Dave. A gentleman came in back in August with $200,000. He said, I want $50,000 on the Seahawks to make the playoffs, $50,000 to win the West, $50,000 to win the NFC, and $50,000 to win the Super Bowl. Well, he cashed plus 180 on the playoffs, 6-1 on the West, 37-1 on the NFC, and now he's got 3.7 million riding on the Seahawks on the Super Bowl. So he came in and bet New England money line 1.1 million plus 188. So what he's done is he's guaranteed he's a $2 million winner on the Super Bowl. Plus, he's already won almost 2 million from his other bets. So what a great story for him. Now on the total, it's been bet down incrementally here, slowly, from 46.5 to 46 to 45.5. And here on Tuesday, we stand at 45, Dave.
Wow. There are always those great stories you have, but I'm sure there are many others you could share with us. And I know you just came off as Survivor again, another successful year, all the great contests you have. And folks here in Iowa, please, as always, just go to your app store or to the Apple Store or Google Apps or Google Play, whatever device you have, and download the Circa Sports app for Iowa. Start playing right now today. You can play online, of course, in Vegas. You got properties now on the Tennessee-Kentucky border, just into Kentucky, about 45 minutes north of Nashville, and of course the Illinois and Chicago area property. And you got a brick and mortar that's going to be opening in a couple of years. So a lot going on. So Mike, we've got to talk Hawkeye men's basketball and betting lines. In their 21 games this year, the Hawks 16-5 overall, 6-2 in the Big Ten. Mike, they are 14-7 against the spread ATS. Not too shabby for Ben McCollum and his guys.
Yeah, and even better as a dog. They've been very good as a dog, and you can see the progression in this program, Dave. You see it firsthand there, though. A coach that coaches both ends of the floor, right? And these kids that he's taken, from tiny colleges and community colleges and brought them up through Drake into Iowa. And look, I think the future is very bright there for the men's side of the game, and I think there's a renewed excitement that hasn't been there in a while.
Yeah, absolutely agreed, 100%. I'm glad you mentioned that about them being dogs and the underdogs, even better. So, yeah, good, very good stuff as always. When we're talking Hawkeyes now, I'm going to transition to something that hasn't been great as of late. A couple of big losses at home. You are one of the very few sports books, and again, circasports.com. He's Mike Palm, VP of Operations, Northeast Iowa native from Dubuque, and you handle the betting lines, and you're spearheading this last couple of years. You are one of the very few sports books that take bets on men's college wrestling. Hawkeye men not doing so well. How's it looking? How are you guys taking money right now? Has it looked good for you guys? But Hawkeye men right now, tough shape, having lost at home to Penn State a couple weeks ago, then to Minnesota just a week ago. The natives are getting restless in Iowa with wrestling right now, Mike.
And the natives are turning their betting too. So, we made money off this first swoon, but now they've turned now and they're fading the Hawkeyes and the Brands brothers. So I think the public's going to get even by the time the year's over if they keep riding against the Hawkeyes here. But it's been good for the handle. It's been good for the handle because people finally see maybe there's a betting opportunity. The line's always tilted to the Hawkeyes because it's offered in Iowa, right? So it's like when you have a local bookmaker, you bet the opposing side because you're always going to get a better line than the national market. Well, they've been able to take advantage of here recently of the weighted line to the Hawkeyes.
I'll tell you, Mike, when you take a look at that, and it's such a cool option that you bring with the wrestling, you being an Iowa native and in the wrestling angle, like you mentioned, it's almost like dealing with local. But that's the thing I find very compelling with what you do for a living. You're in that war room setting the lines. And let's talk Hawkeye men's basketball again for a second. Let's go back to that. And you mentioned about how they're really good at dogs. And you take a look at a team like that. And as you mentioned, it took a while, I got to believe, for you to get right with some of these lines because they were all new players. Cooper Koch was the only, there was a walk-on that returned last year, spelled the same way, but pronounced differently, Coke. But he came back. He's an Iowa City West kid. But Cooper Koch is essentially the only returner for Fran McCaffrey last year. Of course, you got a chance to see Bennett, Sturtz, and McCollum work together at Drake last year, and the other 5 players with Man Yao and Tavian Banks and Cale Combs and some of those guys. But essentially, that was a new line for you guys, and you really got a, pun intended here, got a handle on that quickly, Mike.
Yeah, and you know what else is there? The Big Ten is better than I thought it was going to be. I have to tell you, it's deeper than it's been in years. And I did not expect Nebraska nor Illinois to be as good as they are. And I have to tell you, I think Illinois might be the best team in the Big Ten. Everybody's going to focus on Michigan, right, and Michigan State. But very quietly, Illinois and Brad Underwood have put together a terrific campaign here, especially the last month. You saw them when they came into Carver Hawkeye. They were very impressive, and very impressive at Lincoln. Coming back, Nebraska made that big run before half, and they really dominated them in the second half. So you also have to adjust to the other teams, right? Minnesota, great first half team, not so good in the second half, right? They really struggle. Indiana's shown signs of being good at times, right? They should have beat Nebraska. They went out and beat UCLA in that wild game. So there's a depth to the Big Ten that we haven't seen in several years.
Yeah, and Purdue has struggled at times too, and everybody was thinking, hey, we're going with Purdue. I agree with you on Illinois, by the way, and they proved that, as you mentioned, in Lincoln and Nebraska this last weekend. You got a couple of 7-footers besides working inside, Mike. They can shoot it. And if your last name is Stojakovic, if you're Peja Stojakovic's kid, as you agree with me, that kid can shoot, and he did it against Iowa as well, as you mentioned. Got a chance to see them up close and personal. And I like Brad Underwood. I think he does a great job. And boy, he always seems to find somebody somewhere, kids that can play, doesn't he?
Right. He takes these kids that are unheralded recruits and turns them into first or second team All-Americans. It's shocking.
Yeah, it really is. And again, we get to see it firsthand here. But Mike, great stuff from you as always. I'd tell you to enjoy the Super Bowl, but I know you're going to because you're in Vegas. Why wouldn't you, right?
It's one of the best times of the year, Dave, and it's always fun to talk to you.
Yeah, and thank you. And great to talk to you. And I look forward to having more fun with you as we get down the road here for basketball season. Mike, we're in February, as we mentioned, February 3rd today. In another month, we're going to be in your second favorite time of the year, as you mentioned, with March Madness. We can talk a little Major League Baseball because spring training will be in the works. We got pitchers and catchers reporting in the next couple of weeks. Pay attention because the calendar's flying by, isn't it?
It is. I'm excited about the Cubs. I like what they did in the offseason. And don't give up on the Iowa women. UCLA is very good, And I'll tell you, if there's any team that can beat Connecticut, I think it's UCLA because of their tremendous size. It's almost unfair that they're that athletic and that tall. So don't give up on the Iowa women on that one game.
I'm really glad you said that because we just talked about that in a previous segment with Owen Siebring. Tough game. We knew that USC was going to be tough on the road. Even though Juju Watkins isn't playing there, you knew that Coach Gottlieb and her crew would have something for them. And yeah, you're playing UCLA anywhere, but especially at Pauly and Lauren Betts and that crew. We've seen that for the last couple of years now. So well stated by you as always. Mike, again, a lot of fun, very informative. We'll see you very soon. For Mike Palm, I'm Dave O'Hara. Thanks also to Owen Siebring and my production partners at BettorEdge and BettorEdge.com, Greg Kajewski and James Siles. I'm Dave O'Hara with Hawkeye. That's all for me. Thanks to all of you.